Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and before I get into this week's video, because I know you've already seen the title, I just need to let you know that this is the most important video I am ever going to film on this channel because I'm so passionate about the HBO show Girls that I needed to talk about it in an extended format. I think that I may be the voice of my generation, or at least a voice of a generation. And that is what qualifies me to speak on this. And of course, that is a famous quote from Girls from Miss Hannah Horvath. And don't worry, we're gonna get into all of it, but I need you guys to watch the show if you have not already. I've seen it, it changed my life. I've convinced so many friends to watch it as well, and it's changed their lives as well, or at least that's what they've told me. And instead of just going through the show itself, I wanna talk about how it actually was created, like how Lena Dunham was able to get Girls greenlit at 23, and some of the stuff that went on behind the scenes, the reception from critics, and just talk about honestly one of my favorite shows of all time. So without further ado, what is Girls? Basically, it is a show created, written, and directed by Miss Lena Dunham about a group of 20-somethings who are navigating New York post-graduating college. It follows these four friends, Hannah, Marnie, Shoshana, and Jessa, as they explore life as an adult and deal with the triumphs and hardships of that. But Lena was actually able to get this show because of her success with her short film Tiny Furniture, which actually had a really similar premise to Girls. One thing about Lena Dunham is she is going to write what she knows. The movie itself was about a girl, Aura, who was played by Lena, basically moving back in with her mom in Tribeca after graduating college and figuring out life. I think she was like a film studies major, and then she meets this guy, and her best friend Charlotte is a recovering drug addict. So it's just her trying to figure out how to juggle being an adult, honestly. And funny enough, Jemima Kirk, who also plays Jessa in Girls, played Charlotte in Tiny Furniture, and both of them are drug addicts. They are both friends of the main character, and they try to kind of navigate struggles of addiction together. The film itself won Best Narrative Film at South by Southwest. It gained a lot of popularity. It had great critic reviews, and Lena Dunham also worked on a web show called Delusional Downtown Divas, which again was about girls in New York just living life. And that is really what allowed her to formulate this idea of Girls. She knew she had to strike when the iron was hot and had this idea to pitch to HBO for a show. I'm going to read you what she wrote in her pitch meeting because she walked in, she had a loose pitch and then some Burger King napkins which she scribbled on. And that is how she delivered this information and this show to executives at this network. But basically, a lot of people say that the end of this pitch is what actually got the pilot greenlit, so let me just read it. Lena said, "They are the Facebook generation and ironically enough are isolated by all the connectivity available to them and prone to Facebook stalking and drunk IMing and booty calls via Twitter, deciphering text message like their ancient hieroglyphics and blogging pictures of all the food they eat. They are navigating transitioning out of college level codependence on their girlfriends but will still call to announce that they got their period or saw a man masturbating on the subway or saw a man who looks sort of kind of like a kid they went to camp with. Could it be him? And if so, is he on Facebook? They're beautiful and maddening. They're self-aware and self-obsessed. They're your girlfriends and daughters and sisters and employees. They're my friends and I've never seen them on TV." The biggest thing that she tried to hammer into these people was the fact that she had not seen shows that portrayed her and her friends. And I think that's what made Girls work really well. We'll get into it a little bit later, but it's really interesting because a lot of the post-grad shows at the time kind of portrayed these perfect lives of people living in like the upper echelon of society or just like succeeding in their careers or in their lives. But there was no one talking about the nitty-gritty of what it meant to graduate from college, move to the big city, and really struggle, not only with yourself, but with your friends, your relationships, codependence with your parents, and adjusting to this new point in life. And I think that's really what got this show on the air, if I'm being honest. The four main girls are Hannah Horvath, played by Lena Dunham. We have Marnie Michaels, played by Allison Williams. Jessa Johansson, played by Jemima Kirk. And Shoshana Shapiro, played by Zosha Mehmet. I think I pronounced that wrong, but whatever. There were a lot of other recurring characters, so let me just read those off to you as well because I'm sure that you recognize some of these names. Adam, of course, is played by Adam Driver. Elijah is played by Andrew Rannells. Ray is played by Alex Karpovsky, and Charlie is played by Christopher Abbott. There were also a number of guest appearances by really high-level actors and celebrities, so let me read through those as well because, again, you're gonna know these names. Like, this was a high-profile show. Patti LuPone, who plays herself, Donald Glover, who plays Hannah's Republican boyfriend in season 2. Don't worry, we're gonna get into that one later. Jenna Lyons, who plays Hannah Horvath's boss at GQ. Jenna Lyons was an executive at J. Crew, and she also was on Real Housewives of New York, the reboot. Gillian Jacobs, who played Mimi Rose Howard. Jenny Slate, who played Tally Schifrin, Hannah's frenemy. Rita Wilson, Danielle Brooks, Amy Schumer, Zachary Quinto, and more. I want to try and kind of explain the essence of the show to you, so what better way to do that than just explaining the pilot, because I feel like it actually sets a really good picture of what we're going to be dealing with in the show as a whole. It touches on the friendships, the relationships with men, the relationships with parents, and how these people who are so completely different can coexist in a new world setting, being New York City after graduating college together and spending some time apart. The pilot begins with Hannah basically finding out that her parents are cutting her off. She's been graduated for college for a little bit and they're like, we're done financially supporting you. Because at this time, Hannah is working an unpaid internship and has no money coming in, but she still has to pay rent, get groceries, all of the above. She goes home and tells her friend and roommate Marnie, who says basically you need to convince them to give you a salary at this job. So Hannah marches in and basically demands to be paid, and they're like, absolutely not, we're so sorry that this is happening, but you're fired. Hannah then goes to seek solace from her situationship Adam, of course played by Adam Driver, and he tricks her into having unprotected sex. We then see Jessa arrive in the city after traveling the world, and she is staying with her cousin Shoshana. Hannah expresses her excitement for seeing Jessa because they haven't seen each other in so long, and Marnie is really hesitant. She's like, I'm really not excited for this. I don't really love Jessa like that anymore, and is just kind of rolling her eyes at the entire situation. Marnie also expresses to Hannah that she's having boyfriend troubles because her boyfriend Charlie is really feminine and too soft for her. He's been annoying her because he's been extremely clingy and she doesn't know what to do about it. Then a dinner party is thrown at Hannah and Marnie's for Jessa's homecoming, to which Jessa and Hannah are late to, and that really makes Marnie upset. The episode ends with Hannah drinking some opium tea, getting extremely high, and going to her parents' hotel room where she demands to be paid a stipend every month. I think it was like for $1,100, and then demands them to read her short book of memoirs that is currently unpublished.
But I think that I may be the voice of my generation, or at least a voice of a generation.
They refuse to the money part and look visibly uncomfortable reading the short stories. They're like, this is not good. Then we cut to the next morning. Hannah wakes up in the hotel room. She rolls over. She sees $40 left by her parents. Her parents are nowhere to be seen, and one of the 20s is for Hannah. The other is for the hotel cleaning lady. Hannah takes both 20s, pockets them, and walks out. Again, I don't want to recap every episode, but I think the pilot actually does a great job of really explaining these characters. Hannah is someone who is really struggling in her life. She is seemingly insecure because she's looking for validation from men, and she has a really complicated relationship with her friend, specifically Jessa, because Jessa comes off as cool girl, doesn't care, like truly is just floating around life. Marnie is very clearly type A. She is someone who is annoyingly on top of things, and it really bothers her that Hannah and Jessa can be really wishy-washy. It seems like Hannah at this point has no direction. She has no money. Marnie is dealing with her own problems with men. Shoshana, we don't really get a lot of her in the pilot, which I'm really upset by because she is actually one of my favorite characters. She has some of my favorite moments in the show, but it does a great job of setting the scene for what this show is going to be. Please let me know if you've seen the pilot. Like, do you feel that way? For me, it was really formative to watch. Once I started, I truly couldn't stop. I watched it for the first time when I was 23. I had just graduated college. I had been living in a new city for a little bit, and I'm 25 now, so I started watching it like 2 years ago. And I just need to say, if you have just graduated college or it's something that's coming in your future, like I feel like this show will benefit you because it made me feel a lot better about myself. All of these characters are a mess. They suck. They are so unlikable, and I think that's what really turned a lot of people off to the show in the first place. We'll get into that a little bit later when I talk about the reception from the general public, but they are also really endearing. Like, it kind of is Car Crash-esque where you don't want to look away, but all of the decisions that you make in your 20s, you put so much into. You're like, this is going to be the biggest decision of my life. And when you look back years later, it's like, that didn't matter at all. So when you see these people making horrific decisions, way worse decisions than you would ever make, it makes you feel a little bit better about how you're living your life, what you're deciding to do, what you're deciding to spend your money on. So with that being said, let's go through some of my favorite moments from the show. Starting out with season 1, episode 3, All Adventurous Women Do. This episode has one of my favorite moments from the show in its entirety, but Hannah famously tweets, "All adventurous women do." After finding out that she has HPV, she immediately presses send on the tweet and then starts to dance to Robin's Dancing on My Own in her room. There's something about it that feels very raw. Marnie then comes home and just starts to dance with Hannah, and in the previous episode they had a fight, but it seemed like this was a true moment of friendship that you see throughout this show. Like, it just seems like these people genuinely hate each other, and then they come together for a moment where you're like, wait, these people are friends, and this is convincing me that they do deep down really love each other. An honorable mention quote from this episode is when the doctor says to Hannah, "You cannot pay me enough to be 24 again," to which Hannah responds, "Well, they're not paying me at all." Which, so true, but I just love the scene so much. Next, we have season 2, episode 3, Bad Friend. Now, this one is kind of insane because Hannah's editor at the time is like, you need to let loose, you need to try new things because you need to have new experiences to write about. So basically, her and her gay best friend, who was her ex-boyfriend, Elijah, decide to try coke and go out. So that way she has some fresh material to write about. So they attend this like warehouse party. Hannah switched shirts and she's in this like yellow mesh top. That image is something that is like burned into my head. Like, there's something about Hannah Horvath in that yellow mesh top at the warehouse party. Oh my God. It reminded me of Zac Efron in Iron Claw. But the episode quickly turns south when Elijah reveals to Hannah in like this state of euphoria that he actually did sleep with Marnie, which sets Hannah off. And like, Elijah is gay. He just tried to have sex with Marnie like as a joke, low-key, and it made Hannah so mad. And it's just like a funny end to an episode that felt like a fever dream to me. Then we have season 2, episode 9, On All Fours. This is when Hannah Q-Tip and Marnie Stronger happen within the same 25 minutes. Oh my God. Hannah is having a crazy bad OCD fit, and like, she is just going crazy. She's not medicated at this time. She's like barely seen a doctor about it, and she's like shoving Q-tips in her ears. Then she goes to the hospital because she like ruptures her eardrum, and they're like, literally never do that again. But because she only did it in one ear, she has to do it to the other. So she like ruptures her eardrum in the other ear because her OCD was acting up so bad that she had to do it to both. And then while this is all happening, Marnie is like trying to get Charlie back because he's like a big time tech CEO now, and she crashes his office party and sings Stronger by Kanye West a cappella.
You can be my white Kate Moss tonight. Play secretary, you're the boss tonight. And you don't give a what they all say, right? Bow in the presence of greatness.
It is so bone chilling that like I get full body chills every time I hear her do that.
No, seriously, you think my life is so funny. Like, oh, let's make fun of the girl who took a risk and put herself out there creatively,
And like, one thing I want to say, Allison Williams as Marnie is the perfect casting, and let me just say I need Allison Williams in the next season of White Lotus. Like, I'm so sorry, it just needs to happen. After that, season 3, episode 7, Beach House. This is my favorite episode of the entire series. It is so good. Basically, all of the girls are feeling really distant from one another, so in order to kind of get their mojo back, Marnie plans this girls trip weekend in the Hamptons at her mom's friend's house. Then they run into Elijah and his friends, and they come back to the house. Marnie's super upset because it was just supposed to be a girls weekend, and now it's like not anymore. And there's like a rift there, and they do this Broadway dance that is so amazing. Like, I love that scene. And then Shoshana just goes off on all of them, reads all of them to filth for being terrible people.
So you have entire conversations in front of
of me like I am invisible. And sometimes I wonder if my social anxiety is holding me back from meeting the people who would actually be right for me instead of a bunch of whiny nothings as friends.
And it's so funny because the things that Shoshana says about them were like criticisms that the audience was making about these characters because they're not perfect in the slightest. They all have like horrible flaws. So for Lena to then write that in the script to basically be like, you're awful, you're awful, you're awful, and here's why.
I wanted to fall asleep in my own vomit all day, listening to you talk about how you bruise more easily than other people.
Are you serious? Okay, well, people have been calling me a narcissist since I was 3, so it doesn't really upset me. You gotta choose something more creative.
I kind of think it is a really perfect moment. And the rest of the episode is so fun. I think it makes that part really poignant because it's like they do the Broadway dance. They're like at a vacation home. It's very beach vibes. And it just ends with this huge explosion from Shoshana, who is usually like a happy-go-lucky girl. Season 5, episode 1, Wedding Day. This is when Marnie gets married to Desi, who is played by Eben Moss-Bachrach, who is in The Bear and in the new Fantastic Four movie. My favorite part of this episode is when they're interacting with the makeup artist.
So, baby.
Yeah, no, BB, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. BB,
I can insert a clip here.
Hey.
Hey.
Oh my god. I don't have a problem. I just think that the makeup is a little bit, shellacked. It looks like you went to Hershey, Pennsylvania and just went like, it's just a lot.
Well, have you ever even worn makeup before?
Yes, I wear mascara every Saturday.
Yeah, the dress is light, so you have to weigh it down with the makeup.
Even then, the tension is so palpable. But then once the wedding ceremony actually starts, like it's really small and quaint and it's like all of that fades away. And again, it's one of those moments where you realize like these people are portraying true friends. And then we have season 5, episode 6, which is my second favorite episode from this entire series. It is basically a Marnie capsule episode. Marnie and Desi get into a fight. That's when he says the famous, "Open your heart to me, Bella." And then Marnie goes, "It's open."
Cruel?
Yes.
I don't want to go get a scone with you this morning, and now I'm cruel?
Open your heart to me. Bella!
Stop.
Open your heart to me now!
It's open!
But then she storms out, she's walking down the street, and then she sees Charlie. So she's like really confused at first, but then he becomes his like charismatic self again, and they have this whole date day together. It's super romantic. She even creates her own alter ego, Magita Perez. They crash a party, and they end up back at his apartment, and then she sees a heroin needle fall off the side of his bed, and that is when she realizes that he became an addict, and this like euphoric day that she experienced with him wasn't real because he was like on drugs the entire time. And she walks home in the rain, like barefoot, and it's so heartbreaking. Like this episode is peak television. I think it's like one of the highest rated of the entire series as well, but so good because it's really, really poignant. And it's not typical girls. Like it does have the fun back and forth in it, and it has some really funny lines as well. But like at the end of the day, it is a heartbreaking episode for Marnie. Besides my favorite episodes, we also need to talk about how the critics and the general public reacted to the show that really made a splash in 2012 when it was released. The general consensus from critics was that it did a really good job portraying characters that aren't typically seen on TV. Like again, at this time, some of the biggest shows were characters who were really polished, I would say, and there wasn't any of that like edge and grit that girls brought to it. Lena's biggest thing was like, no one who has my body type is on TV, and she's nude in a lot of scenes, showing that off. And I think that and the subject of the show really helped people feel seen. It's a really weird time in life navigating post-grad and living in New York City, and I think a lot of people really resonated with that. It did win a Golden Globe in 2013 for Best Television Series, Musical or Comedy, and Lena also won for her portrayal of Hannah Horvath in Best Actor in a TV show, musical, or comedy. There were also a lot of publications that put it on their list of some of the greatest television shows of all time. The Guardian and BBC made lists of the greatest television shows of the 21st century, where The Guardian ranked Girls 18th and BBC 21st. Rolling Stone named it the 65th best television show of all time, and Variety named it the 86th best TV show ever. However, this show really divided the general public. There were a lot of people who, as I said, felt seen, and then there were a lot of people who were like, ooh, what is this? I don't know what I'm watching. It's making me uncomfortable, and therefore I don't like it. It garnered a lot of attention for its sometimes controversial portrayal of sex, and it deviated from the norm in the portrayal of adulthood, as I mentioned. Like, these people were not polished, they were not prim, they were really rough around the edges. They had really horrible character traits, and they were not likable characters, which made people think that this show just immediately wasn't good. I think it was ahead of its time when it was originally airing. I think a lot of people felt uncomfortable by these characters because they saw themselves in them and they didn't understand how to grapple with the fact that they are actively disliking a character on TV while also seeing parts of themselves in it, because the show is rooted in realism. Like, this show is a portrayal of 4 types of very specific women. And while a lot of people don't exhibit the exact traits of these characters, people were really unsettled by the fact that some of these characters' worst traits were traits they saw in themselves. While sometimes these characters could be unbearable, they're also extremely endearing, and I think that juxtaposition is actually what makes the show really interesting and why people are going back to watch now. It has had a huge resurgence on TikTok. A lot of the audios have gone super viral, like Good Soup. Open Your Heart to Me, Dancing on My Own.
No, seriously, you think my life is so funny. Like, oh, let's make fun of the girl who took a risk and put herself out there creatively. Which,
like, people doing girls' trends as well. So a lot of Gen Z has started to visit this show as they are kind of coming into the age of these characters as well, and they are loving it. So I think that originally it was trying to have a conversation that more people felt uncomfortable having, and now it's not like that anymore. But maybe that's just my interpretation, and let me know if you think otherwise. I also can't make this video without talking about the major criticisms that were made about it while it was actively on television, the biggest one being the lack of diversity. It took place in New York City, which is one of the most diverse cities in the US, and the 4 main characters and a lot of the other side characters were fully white. I think the worst part about this entire thing is that was a big criticism of season 1. So then in season 2, Lena Dunham pretty much casted Donald Glover to play her Republican boyfriend, and it made Donald really uncomfortable. He actually did an interview after the fact saying that it felt like Lena was using him as a prop to pretty much convince the world of her liberalism without prejudice. That was how the actor even felt about it. But what was even worse was what Lena did after the fact, which was double down on the casting even after hearing that Donald felt uncomfortable. She specifically said, "I don't live in a world where there are divisions like that. I wasn't even thinking I was sitting next to a black guy." And so, of course, Donald Glover's time on the show did not last very long. He exited, and it's really interesting because we didn't see a non-white major cast member until season 6, which was the last season of the show. And even in the interim, there was very little representation from people of color. Danielle Brooks was actually cast in a really minor role. Same thing with Jessica Williams. But that was, I think, the biggest criticism of the show that was never really remedied, and it was a big problem. And the reason why Lena Dunham kind of went into hiding, honestly. I also need to include this random fact about Lena's life during the girls' era, which was that she dated Jack Antonoff pretty much the entire time. They started dating in 2012, which was when the show first aired, and they stopped dating in 2017 after the show ended. This is how Lena actually became best friends with Taylor Swift. And Taylor wrote You Are in Love about Lena and Jack's relationship.
Pauses, then says, "You're my best friend," and you knew what it was.
The breakup, of course, was really messy because a lot of people assumed that there was overlap between the ending of Jack's relationship with Lena and the beginning of his relationship with Lord, which both of them have said that they were not romantically involved, but fans and critics alike have said that looks a little sketchy because the two of them had a lot of chemistry, they were spending a lot of time together, and it seemed like they were dating in secret. There was also a full PowerPoint made by a fan with all of this evidence, and it is so funny because Lena actually commented on it in an interview. At the time, Jack Antonoff defended himself on Twitter, basically saying that all of these rumors were dumb heteronormative gossip. And when Lena was asked about the PowerPoint itself, she said, "Actually, I completely respect the girl because she did a very good job and it was very funny. It was so embarrassing. It was awful because I felt like weird. I don't think anything ever happened between them, but I can never know someone else's life. I've never spoken to Ella about it. We haven't talked since Jack and I broke up. It was awful and I couldn't do anything about it except trust that what he was saying to me was true." Now to get back to the topic at hand, I love this show and I could do a full in-depth about each season. That seems like a really big task to take on, but like I feel like I'm ready to rewatch anyway. So like, I wouldn't be mad if you guys wanted that. I did want to kind of give an overview of the show itself, the way that it was received, and some of the funny moments that I just love from the show. Like, oh my God, if you haven't seen it, like, I'm begging you to at least watch the first few episodes, at least 1 through 3, because at the end of episode 3 with the All Adventurous Women Do Dancing on My Own dance, you're gonna wanna watch episode 4. But if you do watch because of this video, please report back in the comments. Like, I need to know if you like it or not. And that is this week's video. If you liked it, please like, comment, subscribe. It really helps out my channel, and have a great week, everyone. Again, this is the most important video I've ever filmed. I could talk about girls for so many hours, so I'm capping it here. I feel like this is a good intro video, but let me know if you want any more of this.
I